It cost me nearly $1,500 in shattered mailboxes and more than $5,000 in made-up HOA fines before I realized Brenda wasn't just annoying, she was declaring war on me. One morning, I stood there staring at the wreckage of what used to be my mailbox: splintered wood, bent metal, tire tracks stamped into the dirt like scars, and taped to my front door was a violation notice, fining me for failure to maintain property. I knew whose tires had done the damage. It wasn't vandals. It wasn't kids. It was the HOA president herself, parading around in her shiny, pearl-white Lexus like she owned every square inch of Willowbrook Estates. And in that moment, something snapped inside me. When my wife, Lisa, and I bought our home, I thought we'd finally found peace. 3 acres of oak trees, enough room for a garden. A modest brick house, nothing fancy, but solid, after 40 years as a civil engineer. All I wanted in retirement was quiet. What I didn't realize, not until it was too late, was that our land technically fell under the HOA, and the HOA had a queen bee, Brenda Crawford, a 60-something tyrant in tennis visors who seemed to live for controlling people. I met her at a neighborhood cookout. She walked over balancing a plate with a single brownie and looked me up and down like I was a stain on her white carpet. "Must be hard bringing an old property like this up to Willowbrook standards," she said, smiling with her mouth but not her eyes. Not a welcome, not a neighborly hello, just the first shot fired. The first battle was the mailbox. My lot didn't have one, so I spent a Saturday setting a new post in concrete, lining it up just right, making it sturdy. A week later, it was flattened. Lisa thought maybe kids had done it, just some late night prank. But my gut told me otherwise. I rebuilt, stronger this time, even painted it a nice forest green to match our shutters. That's when Brenda struck from the shadows. I found a crisp envelope on my door. Violation. Mailbox posts must be painted ecological beige. Beige. They even included the color code, like I was supposed to drive to the paint store and mix up this lifeless sludge to meet their community standards. $50. I sighed, swallowed my pride, and did it. Painted the post beige, snapped a photo, sent it in as proof. It looked pathetic, like a ghost of a mailbox. And 2 nights later, it was smashed again. I crouched down, my hands shaking as I sifted through the wreckage. That's when I saw it. A fleck of pearly white paint caught in the splintered wood. The exact color of Brenda's Lexus. Now I was done guessing. I strapped a trail camera to the old oak tree across the street, hidden just enough to catch the road. Then I built a 3rd mailbox, again in that soulless beige, and waited. Less than a week later, I pulled the SD card. The footage was grainy, black and white, but the shape was clear. Brenda's Lexus rolling slow, then swerving, then crushing my mailbox like it was nothing but a soda can. Proof. I thought justice would come quickly. I walked into the next HOA meeting with my evidence. The room smelled like burnt coffee and cheap carpet cleaner. I laid it all out. The timeline, the paint chip, the video. Brenda didn't even blink. She leaned back in her chair, folded her arms, and said, "There are plenty of SUVs like mine. Are you really accusing me in front of everyone? This feels like harassment." Her cronies on the board nodded along like bobbleheads. They dismissed me, waved me off. I left shaking with rage, clutching my laptop like a useless weapon. 2 days later, a certified letter arrived. Not only had they ignored my claim, they fined me again, $500 for failure to maintain property because my mailbox was smashed. And another 250 for unauthorized surveillance because I dared strap a camera to a tree. That's when I felt it, the weight of defeat. I sat in my home office staring at the pile of notices and receipts. The sun setting through the blinds. My chest felt heavy. Lisa walked in, touched my shoulder, and said softly, "Honey, maybe it's time to give up. Let's just rent a P.O. box in town. You don't need this." For a long moment, I believed her. Maybe I was the fool. Maybe this fight was pointless. I almost folded. But as I looked at the demolition order sitting on top of the pile, demanding I tear down the brick mailbox I'd built with my own hands, I felt something inside me harden. This wasn't about paint colors or fines. This was about a bully who thought she could crush me into submission. I whispered back to Lisa, "No, not like this." That night, I dragged out the dusty accordion file from when we closed on the house. I sifted through stacks of covenants, deeds, maps, until I found it. The original 1985 plat map of the subdivision. And there it was, a thin, dotted line running parallel to the road, labeled Utility Easement, 15 feet. My heart raced. That strip of land, where every mailbox sat, wasn't mine. It was under utility jurisdiction. The HOA had no authority there. Worse for them, the covenants made the HOA responsible for maintaining it. Every fine, every letter they'd sent me was a fraud. I called my neighbor Fitz, a retired county surveyor. He came over with his dusty tripod, adjusted his glasses, and after measuring said, "Well, damn. She's been harassing you over land she should be mowing herself." He hammered a stake in the dirt and grinned. "That's official." The next call I made was to Alicia, a young lawyer whose firm specialized in crushing overreaching HOAs. When I laid out the evidence, her eyes lit up. "We're not just defending you," she said. "We're going on offense." She drafted an invoice, every mailbox I'd built, every bag of concrete, every hour of labor billed at contractor rates, over $3,000, itemized, sent to the HOA by certified mail. Then we filed a permit directly with the county to install a federally compliant mailbox, bundled with Fitz's surveyor stamp so it became a utility project, not a cosmetic one. Brenda wasn't idle. She stormed down to the county office to protest, screaming about unsightly industrial mailboxes. But the clerk shut her down. Our permit was airtight, blocked at the county. She took to Facebook. Her post was a masterpiece of manipulation. "Dear neighbors, I regret to inform you our community is under attack by a homeowner building an eyesore, suing your board, raising your dues." Comments exploded, some terrified, some furious, some skeptical. A few voices pushed back, reminding everyone she'd forced me to repaint my mailbox 3 times. It became a digital battlefield. Then came the showdown. On a bright Tuesday morning, Dave, an old friend who ran a metal fabrication shop, pulled up with a crane truck carrying what we called the Sentinel, a steel mailbox welded thick, designed to withstand a tank, anchored in 4 feet of concrete, surrounded by thorny plants. The roar of trucks drew neighbors out, curious eyes peeking through curtains. Fitz stood tall in his surveyor vest, clipboard in hand like a judge. Brenda's Lexus screeched to a halt across the street. She stormed out, phone raised, shrieking, "This is illegal! I forbid this! I'll sue every one of you!" She even turned to Dave's crew and hissed, "I'll pay you double to leave right now." Dave sipped his coffee, smirked, and said, "Lady, I wouldn't build a birdhouse for you. 15 minutes later, the sheriff's cruisers rolled in. The crowd held its breath. The deputies stepped out, asked me for my paperwork. My hands didn't shake this time. I handed over a neat folder. County permits. The plat map. Alicia's card. The deputy read carefully, eyebrows raising, then walked straight to Brenda. Ma'am, this work is fully permitted. Your HOA rules don't override county or federal law. If you continue to interfere, you could be charged. The look on her face, I'll never forget it. Her jaw dropped, her cheeks flushed red. In front of half the neighborhood, she was stripped of power. She sputtered, but had no words. Then she spun on her heel, slammed into her Lexus, and peeled off. The crowd whispered. The Sentinel rose that day, unshakable. But Brenda wasn't finished. At the next HOA meeting, she tried to ram through an emergency bylaw outlawing industrial mailboxes. The community center was packed, standing room only. She banged her gavel, voice dripping with false concern, talking about property values and community spirit. I stood up and said, "Point of order." She snapped. "You're out of order." That's when Alicia rose, calm, carrying her heavy briefcase. "He's not." She handed thick packets to each board member. Inside, my overdue invoice marked 30 days past due, intent to lien. Photos of Brenda's own illegal 6-foot fence. And the final blow, a recall petition signed by more than 60% of homeowners. The board's faces drained of color as they flipped pages. Neighbors murmured. Then a man shouted, "I move for a vote of no confidence right now." 3 voices seconded. The roar of "aye" was deafening. The vote was unanimous. Brenda sat frozen, gavel slack in her hand, her kingdom crumbling around her. She stood slowly, pale, eyes vacant, and walked out. No farewell, no excuse, just gone. Weeks later, a for sale sign appeared in her yard. The Lexus disappeared, replaced by a moving truck. And with her went the shadow that had hung over Willow Brook. The new board was reasonable. The fines disappeared, and the check for damages arrived in the mail. But the real victory wasn't money. It was watching the tyrant dethroned. Her power dissolved in front of everyone she once ruled. Now, every time I see the Sentinel standing guard at the end of my drive, I feel a quiet satisfaction. Neighbors point to it when giving directions. Turn left at the indestructible mailbox. What used to be the source of constant battles is now a landmark. A symbol that you don't have to roll over and accept tyranny just because someone has a title. And if you take one thing from my story, let it be this. Sometimes the strongest defense is simply knowing your ground. Because that's how I beat Brenda. And that's what we stand for here on HOA Drama Unfolded.